Hi there everyone, Aaron here to let you know I finally completed Red Dead Redemption 2. I know, I really did take my time. I was genuinely floored by the severe level of pedigree that Rockstar managed to attain in this western prequel, and as much as I adored Arthur Morgan, I couldn't help but reminisce on the true star of that game, and its open world. Rockstar brought a graphical fidelity that felt like it shouldn't even be possible on console games, with an impeccable level of detail to bustling towns and villages, and a flawless approach to open-ended exploration. But if Red Dead 2 is the pinnacle of open world games, then what are the foundations that it builds itself upon? When open world game is slapped on the descriptor of any new release, most gamers are going to think of its three main staples, and those are its world, its content, and player freedom. These are typically the elements that make these types of games stand apart from the rest, and as the years went on we've had more worlds to choose from. What is it that actually makes a good open world game? When it comes to choosing an open world game or sandbox, the world is and always will be the unique selling point. Do we want a medieval fantasy land, a mythological reimagining of ancient Greece, or a grounded interpretation of the old American West? While every game can tweak or alter the basic formula to some degree, the world is the one element they have complete control over, and the one element they have to stand out from the crowd. While I don't think that Horizon Zero Dawn done anything new or exciting for open world games, its future post-apocalypse, its robotic dinosaurs and tribal culture was enough to draw me in and see me through its duration. This is something that is perfectly encapsulated by the Assassin's Creed franchise, which admittedly has changed its formula in the past few entries, but its setting is always its selling point over gameplay or story. Those elements are there for the players that are looking for it, but what Ubisoft really wants us to know is which historical setting it's taking us to next. Setting is of course something that every game is going to have to tackle to some degree, but where some can use it as backdrop or window dressing, the open world has to be fully realised. Through its environments and non-playable characters, a picture has to be painted of the world that surrounds us to make it feel as real as possible. Towns have shops and wildlife roam the countryside, and the people that inhabit an outback village compared to a busy city are different. The world that we're exploring has to make sense, or its own kind of sense, before we even start our first mission. When we finally do start that first mission, the content has to be appropriate for the world it's set in. Most open world games will try to keep you busy through their extended runs, but by doing so they can build upon the world and make it a more realised setting. We all know the standard for content, which comes in the form of main campaign and side mission. The side mission for years has been the embodiment of the open world, as it is seen as the first or most popular incarnation of optional content. Something that's entirely ignorable, but increasingly important to establish the world that we're in. It can introduce us to side characters, smaller locales, and the quirkier side of the world that we're in. Yet as the demand for increased scale and length came into effect, developers took to maiming their experiences with relentless fodder with the likes of fetch quests and reconnaissance missions.
Look, find my ship and my Yiki, will you? I'll pay.
Or more simply put, quantity over quality. It's so to tackle boredom, it's so that we aren't wandering these maps for more than say a minute without some kind of interaction popping up. And it's something that Ubisoft have been notorious for in the past, as they litter their maps with OCD inducing icons to make sure that you can barely turn a corner without some kind of content begging to be checked off the list. Yet as open world games continue to grow and mature, we're beginning to see a more nuanced approach to optional content. Red Dead 2 had you stumbling across escaped jail convicts, prisoners kept in basements, and sometimes you were even stopped by robbing bandits. Each of these enticed you in, but none overtly demanded your attention. It had that traditional sense of optional content, but dialed it back in a way that felt natural and unobtrusive. This approach to optional content helps the world become more clear and defined. Events are taking place, people are living their lives, we just happen to be there to witness it. It's that lived in nature that made stumbling across animals fighting in some of the earlier Far Cry games so special. And then on the other end of the spectrum we have Death Stranding, which stripped back a lot of its layers of optional content, leaving some players high and dry, and others with an evocative and emotional experience, as they could walk for upwards of 10 minutes across its landscapes, with nothing more than the route to plan. Through these flexible approaches, the content can work in direct correlation with the world as they bounce off of one another to improve its believability. If we don't buy into the world and we don't get that sense of believability, you can still have some kind of fun, but you aren't going to want to stay around to the same degree. However, when a world simply clicks and you just want to stick around, the sandbox has that explorative edge over its competition. While we are often surrounded by stuff to do and orders to follow and stories to live, the most fun that I often have in open world games is when I'm set loose to do as I please. Everyone knows the mania of GTA, or the weirdly satisfying trend of trying to drive normal for more than 2 minutes. But the true power behind the open world game is that it enables players to create their own unscripted stories. To go back to Death Stranding, quite often when I think of that game, I don't think of its campaign. I think of the time that I fell down a canyon during a timed delivery and had to run for my life, looking for a way out as the alerted mule camp above rained down their electric spears. Making those kind of mistakes and approaching scenarios how you wish add this unparalleled level of immersion that most other games just simply cannot capture. We may be tasked with retrieving something from the same camp, but as one goes round the back, sneaking past the guards, and the other blasts through the front door, guns blazing, two separate experiences are generated, and it was entirely down to player choice. Giving players that power opens up the world of possibilities and means that you can take as much from a game as you put into it. We've even seen increased freedom introduced to more traditionally linear games, which are trying to evoke a sense of a larger world, and it works really well in those smaller kind of sandbox games like Dishonored and Prey. For a game to remove the leash and set you loose on an open, expansive world, it leaves us with the question of what we want from that game. Where do you want to go? What are your goals? And who do you want to be? The best sandbox games will present a world rife for exploring, filled with details, content, environmental storytelling, and the flexibility to approach scenarios how you wish. Through this cyclical harmony of world, content, and player freedom, we don't just have fun when we're playing these games. We believe where we are when we're having it, and that's a true representation of an open world. Thanks everyone for watching. If you want to see more content like this, then subscribe to BBC The Social Gaming, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.